couple that's got a financial planner, they could spend anywhere from probably get a 50 to 80% discount on their monthly premiums compared to somebody who doesn't have help and they don't know where to put their money.
Right, because it's all based on what is considered taxable income, right? It's not spendable income, it's actual taxable income.
And they go even further because you've got the ACA taxable income is different than your normal taxable income that you would be looking at any other tax year. So, yeah, they make it even trickier.
Starting your route to retirement.
Hello, everybody. I'm Dean Barber, founder and CEO of Barber Financial Group. Welcome to the Guided Retirement Show. This week, we have Taylor Garner. He is a health insurance expert. We're going to be talking about healthcare costs in retirement, how you can control those, and the difference between Medicare Advantage plans and Medicare Supplements. Please enjoy my conversation with Taylor Garner. All right, Taylor Garner, welcome back to the Guided Retirement Show. We had you on here last season, and it was on YouTube, a very watched episode, on our podcast, a very downloaded episode. So I know this, Taylor. I know that health insurance costs in retirement are a big deal to just about everyone. And you've built an organization that is set to deal with those issues in a very personal way. So let's talk about your career first and how you got into the health insurance industry and why you think it's so critical for those people leading up to retirement and even entering into retirement.
Thank you for having me back. Number one, that was we had a great time, great show, and a little bit about my history and why I do what I do now. Honestly, centers around my family. I remember going to help my dad, who at the time was pretty frustrated with his Medicare insurance at that point, and come to find out after doing a little bit of digging, the agent that had helped him enroll in that plan had basically just lied to him, told him that it covered a lot of things that it didn't cover. Mind you, at the time, I have nothing to do with insurance. I don't know anything about it, but just pulling out the paperwork and the application that was sent in, it was very clear that he was misled. And that kind of triggered the ball rolling in the direction that it did, where I just really wanted to go help people. And that's, almost 10 years later now, we find that I've been able to do that hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of times at this point.
So what was the main issue there with your dad?
He was just simply misled. Insurance is confusing, whether it's Medicare insurance, whether it's non-Medicare insurance, it's confusing. So you'll find that people like my father need to reach out to an agent or someone like myself to get help kind of figuring out what their different rules and options and entitlements are. And he had just gotten linked up with somebody that wasn't telling him the truth. It was a sales agent for a specific insurance company, and that person's only job was to sell him a policy. Whether it fit his needs or not didn't matter, and that's exactly what the agent did. The only way to do that was to lie to him about what the coverage was.
It's interesting because I don't want to say anything bad about the insurance industry as a whole, but I think that they have trained some of the best salespeople in the world, and they reward them in the wrong way. They reward them through a commission on insurance, and it's like, okay, the more we can get somebody to pay a premium, the more I, as an insurance agent, get to make in a commission. And so it creates, in my opinion, a conflict of interest of, are we actually doing the right thing for that individual, or are we really simply looking out for our own best interests? And I think you notice that same thing in the industry as well.
Absolutely. You'll find it more when you run into somebody who has a more limited portfolio of products to pull from. They are absolutely more inclined to push products on a client that may or may not fit their needs at all.
So are you talking more like a captive type of an agent?
Captive agent, and just limited in their experience, limited in their training, limited in what they're allowed to sell.
Our listeners or viewers may not know what is a captive agent. Can you explain that?
A captive agent, there's a couple different ways that can go. The easiest one to identify is if the agent works directly for one of the large insurance companies. It's hard to kind of describe that without naming an insurance company, which I won't do. But
so they have one product. It's like the round peg fits in the square hole every time.
Yeah. It's like if I was a car dealer and I only sold Fords, I'm going to put you in a Ford. That's my job.
Right.
Now, the Ford may not fit your style. Maybe you want a Chevy, maybe you want a Tesla, maybe you want another car, but I don't work with those dealers. So I'm just going to sell you a Ford. A broker like myself, we work with, we're helping people get in the Tesla, the Chevy, the Ford. Tesla doesn't matter. It's really just based on your needs and what you want.
So Taylor, whenever you entered into the insurance realm and you started saying, okay, how can I do this the best way for people? Did you notice that there was a lack of education in the insurance realm of things?
Yes, I think what I identified was as a newly licensed agent going into this large world of insurance where you can choose from, one of 100 different pathways you can go down, that the training is really what makes the difference. The training and the availability to contract with or represent multiple companies, that to me was the perfect fit, because I come from a background where I want to educate and help people. And so we started with, the answer to the question, how did you get into this? And it's just helping people solve problems. So when I first got licensed, I was actually going to go work for a property and casualty company, one of the big brick and mortar auto and home insurance companies. And the fact that they were so limited on what they could sell, it was just their products. So my biggest question going into insurance, not knowing anything about it at the time, is, well, what if none of these products fit this client's needs? What are we supposed to do? Well, you just sell them. You make up whatever you need to.
That doesn't make any sense.
It's horrible. So I did not get contracted with that company, and I started looking elsewhere and found Medicare and health insurance brokers. That's what I wanted to do.
So I know that a lot of people, as they head into retirement, and we work with people that specifically that are approaching retirement or in retirement, and I've seen a number of instances where people will say, I can't retire until I get to Medicare age because healthcare prior to Medicare is way too expensive and it'll blow up my whole retirement plan. But that doesn't necessarily have to be the case.
No. And a lot of that boils down to their financial advisor, because based on what your financial advisor helps you with, you can absolutely retire now. Your healthcare costs may not be near as high as you think they are if you've got the right help.
So we know they're there, and we know that, early on in retirement, I can just kind of take an example of clients of ours over the years, and we look at healthcare costs relative to everything else that they want to spend. And a lot of times in those early years of retirement, they're planning on, this is 15% of my total spending, or it's 18 or 20%. It's somewhere in between that 15 and 20% generally. But once they hit Medicare age, that number changes. So what's the difference between somebody on a private healthcare policy prior to Medicare, and then how does that change once they reach Medicare age? And is there a significant difference in what they're responsible for?
The biggest change is when somebody retires, the vast majority of them, their income drastically decreases. They're no longer bringing in an active paycheck. So when they become eligible for Medicare, decide to retire, that, $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 a month that they were bringing in from being employed no longer exists. So their income is reduced, and the actual cost when they become eligible for Medicare in order to be insured under what I would consider a strong or very decent plan is not near as much as a lot of people think. I mean, for $200 a month, and that includes your Part B premium on Medicare, you can be very well insured. You can get more robust insurance coverage and just increase your monthly premium, but as a starting point, $200 a month will do you pretty good.
So but that's the post Medicare age, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So what about pre Medicare? I mean, the Affordable Care Act, which I think is really misnamed, because what I've seen and witnessed is that the Affordable Care Act actually raised premiums for those that are not employed, that don't have, they're not eligible for Medicare, and then they've got to go out and shop this exchange. How does that compare to what we had prior to the Affordable Care Act?
Prior to the Affordable Care Act, your health insurance monthly premiums didn't have anything to do with your income. Now they do. So that's one of the biggest differences. And the base monthly premiums on the Affordable Care Act are a lot, triple, maybe quadruple what they were under private insurance before the ACA. So the monthly premiums are, at the starting point, they're a lot higher. Okay. But again, it goes right back to, if you're dealing with or working with a good financial planner, there are absolutely ways for you to use a Roth IRA, use HSA.
What you're saying is, what you got to do is you got to be able to reduce the taxable income, and then you might be able to qualify for some subsidies
You get the
under
subsidies.
the Affordable Care Act.
That's
right?
the affordable part of the Affordable Care Act, is it all hinges on the subsidies that you get. If you don't qualify for any subsidies, then you're going to be paying a lot more for your health insurance than you would have ever paid before the Affordable Care Act.
I think that leads into a good discussion. We'll get back to like health insurance costs here in a minute. But if somebody were to have done good planning prior to retirement, they've created a Roth portion of their 401k, they could actually start taking from that Roth portion first, keep themselves below the income limit to where they could qualify for the subsidies, to where their health insurance under the Affordable Care Act could be mostly paid for, if not 100% paid for, yet they still have the ability and the freedom to do the things that they want to do and have the lifestyle that they want to have. That's what you're talking about as far as the planning part of it.
That's exactly right. The sooner the better, too. So they've got a look back period of, I believe it's 1 or 2 years. Yeah, absolutely. You can cut the cost of your health insurance. I think we talked about it right before we started, where if you have two identical couples, and let's say their incomes are identical, one of those couples is working with a financial planner, they're putting their money in the right vehicles, their cost for the exact same health insurance, the couple that's got a financial planner, they could spend anywhere from probably get a 50 to 80% discount on their monthly premiums,
right,
compared to somebody who doesn't have help and they don't know where to put their money.
Right, because it's all based on what is considered taxable income, right? It's not spendable income, it's actual taxable income.
And they go even further, because you've got the ACA taxable income is different than your normal taxable income that you would be looking at any other tax year. So, yeah, they make it even trickier.
Well, that's our government, right? Let's make it as complicated as possible. I kind of call what the government does as the CPA Full Employment Act, right? So we're going to make this as complicated as possible. So you got to meet with a CPA in order to be able to figure out where you're at. Taylor, let's change gears here just a little bit, and let's talk about the different types of Medicare plans that are out there today, the supplements, and how does a person go about saying what's right for me? And then how often can they change, and what are the limitations? Because it's like alphabet soup, right? You got A, you got B, you got C. There's all these different things out there, and for the average person entering into retirement, assuming they're Medicare age, now I've got to pick a supplement. Some people have supplements, an insurance policy that'll carry them past retirement. Their company's nice enough to or generous enough to have provided a healthcare plan that's going to go beyond that. And so let's talk about this whole idea of a supplement to Medicare, and why is that supplement necessary?
The supplemental insurance is necessary because original Medicare itself is not designed to cover everything. Original Medicare was designed back in 1965. Back in 1965, the cost of healthcare was nowhere near what it is now. And since Medicare was designed by our government, it's kind of a clunky thing. It's hard to keep up with a lot of the changes. With the rising cost in healthcare, original Medicare, designed back in the mid-60s, not going to cut it nowadays. So original Medicare, what I teach people is it's a great foundation. It's a great place to start. Everybody adds some type of insurance that essentially protects them from what Medicare is not protecting them against. They work in conjunction with each other. Medicare is a necessary part of it, but you've got a slew of other plans to choose from that can kind of help protect you from, what's not covered. Like you said, it's like alphabet soup. When you first start looking at it, it's extremely confusing.
So the Medicare by itself, what's kind of give me a worst case scenario. Let's say that somebody just does Medicare. They don't do a Medicare supplement. Mm-hmm. They wind up having a stroke. They're in the hospital for a number of days. They got to go into a continuing care community or something like that. They've got to have multiple, weeks of rehab. If a person like that simply relies on Medicare, what are the financial risks?
That could be in the six figures. They could have upwards of $100,000 to $200,000 worth of bills that they're responsible for easily.
In the Medicare supplement plans, I know that a lot of them will allow a person to have here's my maximum out-of-pocket expense that I'll have above my premiums. So how does all that work?
Well, when somebody gets original Medicare, they essentially have two different types of health insurance plans that they can choose from that work with Medicare. On one side, you have the Part C Medicare Advantage plans. On the other hand, you have the Medicare Supplement plans. You can't have both. They do not work together. So part of the needs analysis that I do with folks is educating them on not only original Medicare, but then the real difference between these two different types of health insurance plans. Both of those health insurance plans are offered through a ton of different insurance companies, and there's a multitude of different options. So whether somebody looks at the Medicare Advantage side or whether they look at the Medicare Supplement side, it's not like there's only 2 or 3 options on one path versus the other. Each path is really confusing.
So the different insurance companies that offer these different plans are, let's just say that somebody wants to go the Medicare Supplement side. Mm-hmm. Are they uniform across the board, so they're all the same, but you might have different premiums? How does that work?
Great question. The Medicare Supplements, those are standardized plans. One of the best things the government ever did was, so go back, a little history lesson, Medicare starts in the mid-'60s. You better believe that back then, Mutual of Omaha, a lot of these older established insurance companies, they had been in business for 20, 30, 40 years by that point. They see a big opportunity because original Medicare is not covering everything. Back then, a lot of these insurance companies started creating just their own supplemental plans off the shelf. Eventually, the government did get involved and they said, listen, private insurance companies, we love what you're doing here. It's really confusing. So we are going to standardize these Medicare supplement plans. What that means, it's so easy to understand when you see the chart that it's hard to understand because we're not used to health insurance being standardized like this. But on the supplemental side, I could look at 100 different insurance companies, and if I look at their G plan supplements, every single one of them is identical in coverage. Every single one of them is identical when it comes to the network. The only difference is going to be that monthly premium that the insurance company charges.
So how that's kind of wild to me that they're all going to provide the same coverage, but they're yet could provide a different premium.
Mm-hmm. Now they try and keep their premium. It's a very competitive industry, obviously. So they try and keep their premiums as low as possible. And the question you may be getting to is, well, what determines a higher premium or a lower premium? A lot of factors go into that. One of the main factors is how large is the insurance company? If they've only got a handful of clients, their premiums are going to be very, very high. The larger insurance companies that have a lot more active policies out there, their insurance premiums generally are going to be a lot lower.
So the reason they're lower is because they've got a larger pool
You got it.
to go from, right? That's interesting. I don't think
one of the factors,
Yeah,
but
but
in general,
I don't think people realize that they're all the same as far as here's the coverage is going to be identical.
they're not, and that's on the supplemental side. And
Right.
the other tricky part is you've got, so that second type of health insurance plan, the Medicare Advantage plans, Part C, a lot of people refer to those as supplemental plans because in their mind, well, this thing supplements Medicare. They're not wrong to think that, but we are dealing with Medicare, so we have to watch our language. Those are totally different. Those are not standardized. There are a ton of different options down that path, but you're absolutely right. A lot of people don't know that the supplements are standardized.
So let's get to the Advantage plans because to me that's more interesting. Where in the Medicare Advantage plans, most of those have no premium at all.
A lot of them do not have a monthly premium, and that wasn't the case 3, 4, 5 years ago. There's been $0 premium options out there. There weren't as many as there are now, but there are absolutely $0 premium plan options.
So from my understanding of this, and I could get this wrong, so your expertise can help. My understanding was the Medicare Advantage plans were a way for the government. They basically subsidized the premium in lieu of having to process the claims because they knew that the insurance companies had the ability to process the claims much more efficiently than what the government could. So the government says, we'll subsidize premiums in lieu of hiring a whole bunch of people to process these claims. Is that the way that the Medicare Advantage plans really came about?
It's a good way to describe it. When I'm hosting our educational Medicare seminars, the way that I describe Medicare Advantage plans, you have to be very careful on what you say about Medicare Advantage plans, just because of a lot of the CMS rules and guidelines.
What is CMS?
Center for Medicare and Medicaid Services.
Okay, so it's a
government
entity.
organization.
Yeah.
I'm not treading on them. So
Right.
we're going to be it's compliance.
But am I right in saying that
Yeah.
what they're doing is they're processing the claims, right?
This is it. So people's main question is this: how in the world can this insurance company that we've seen their name all over billboards, they offer plans all across America, how can this private insurance company offer a $0 premium plan? Nothing is free.
But it's not really $0 because the government's subsidizing that insurance company, right?
That is where I go with it. I say, well, in order to pick up one of those plans, you still have to maintain original Medicare. Part B on original Medicare has a monthly premium. You're going to pay that. Everybody pays that. Essentially, what Medicare is doing is they're awarding these government contracts to these private insurance companies. They're allowing the private insurance companies to set maximum out-of-pocket levels. They can set their own copays. They can create their own networks, and they can also dictate what monthly premium they want to charge, if any. As soon as somebody enrolls in a Medicare Advantage plan, Medicare starts paying that private insurance company to essentially manage that person's health care. So you are paying for it by paying for Medicare.
Right, but it's not an additional out-of-pocket expense for the retiree.
Correct.
Right? So I guess my question would be, why would everybody not just use the Medicare Advantage plan? What's the big difference between the Medicare Advantage plan and the Medicare Supplement plan?
There's a couple differences that I always compare, and the first stop that we make on our list of differences between Advantage plans and Medicare Supplement plans is the network. When it comes to insurance, especially in retirement, one of the biggest questions people have is, where can I use this insurance? I do not want a limited network. If the wife and I want to travel to Florida, we want to be able to use our insurance down there. What's our network? On the Medicare Advantage plan side, when somebody chooses to enroll in one of those plans, they'll get one of two things, either an HMO or a PPO plan. These are network plans. That is not a good or a bad thing. That's just how they work. So if I go down that path, you better believe I want to get the largest network possible. That's one of the things we help people look at. Now, the networks on the Medicare supplement plans supplement original Medicare. So your network on a supplemental plan is whoever takes Medicare.
So you're basically everybody.
Anybody who takes Medicare. So you can be New York, California, Texas, Kansas, Missouri, does not matter. If they take original Medicare, you can walk right in and your supplemental plan is going to pay the bills that it says it's going to pay on that standardized chart for Medicare supplement plans.
Interesting. So basically, if I'll be kind of cheeky here for a minute, but if you're just going to sit around and you're not going to travel, you're not going to do anything, and the network includes your doctor and hospital, etc., and you never have any plans on doing anything different, then the Medicare Advantage plan might be the right plan for you.
Correct. And I will also tell you, so I've been doing this since 2013. Up until 3-4 years ago, the Medicare Advantage plan networks were what I would say small. You still can find plans that maybe they only work in 1 or 2 counties. 3, 4, 5 years ago, that was really common. Where, let's say I'm in the greater Kansas City area, I'm in Lenexa, Kansas. 3, 4, 5 years ago, I pick up a Medicare Advantage plan. It may only work in Johnson County, Kansas.
Well, people are going to be listening to this all over the country, so they need to be able to check with that, right?
Right. So back then, very small networks for the most part. What we have seen in the industry over the last 2 years is that you have two companies now that have nationwide networks on their Medicare Advantage plan. So when I told you that we're comparing Advantage and supplemental plans, there's a couple things we look at, and the first one is network. Medicare Advantage plans got a really negative reputation because they had very strict networks. Very competitive industry. All of these private insurance companies are pining for new business, so they're looking at how can they gain new clients. Well, one of the biggest things people want is a big network. So now we've got nationwide networks.
So removing the geographical boundaries is a big deal in reducing cost. And
limitations. People don't want to be limited. Yeah. You may have people that enrolled in a Medicare Advantage plan that would love to go travel, but they were terrified to.
So what happens if somebody goes and they start out and they say, I'm going to do the Medicare Advantage plan, and then a year, 4 years, 5 years, or whatever it is from now, they decide, I want to get away from the Medicare Advantage. That doesn't fit me now. I want to go to the Medicare Supplement. Are there restrictions on switching from one to the other?
There absolutely can be. So when somebody first joins Medicare, they've got a guaranteed issue period to basically do whatever they want to. They can pick up a Medicare Supplement plan, Medicare Advantage plan, doesn't matter. This is when they're brand new to Medicare. Once they're outside of that 7-month window, so let's say age 66, 67, a couple years down the road, if they want to switch from a Medicare Advantage plan to a Medicare Supplement plan, they can, as long as the Medicare Supplement insurance company will issue them a policy, and that's going to be contingent, usually based on their health. So they'll ask health questions. So the answer isn't as simple as, well, of course you can change later down the road.
You can if you're healthy.
Perfect. Exactly. If you're perfectly healthy, you're not going to have any problems at all.
Interesting. So that would be a drawback to the Medicare Advantage plan. And then hoping that you could switch to a Medicare Supplement plan. Like, let's say, for an example, I got my mom living in Kansas. I decide I'm going to move to Florida because I hate the winters in Kansas. And then I want to move mom down to Florida. And she's on an Advantage plan in Kansas that doesn't have any of her network in Florida. But now she's sick. She's stuck.
She would, if she wanted to move down there, their Medicare Advantage plans are highly regulated by the government. They're going to open up what's called an SEP, a special election period for her. So if you move out of your region or out of the area that you first picked up that Medicare Advantage plan in, Doesn't matter what time of the year. They'll let you pick from any of the Advantage plans in the new place that you're moving to.
Okay,
so you will be able to.
There is some flexibility there.
Absolutely.
But is there, Taylor? Is there like a does like, I mean, how do you decide? I mean, if you're talking to somebody who's approaching Medicare age, how do you help them decide whether the Advantage plan or the supplement is better?
I let them do the decision making. I just educate them on exactly what these main differences are. I mentioned this the last time that we talked, is that people are smart enough to make their own decisions as long as they know what those decisions are, when they know what the difference between their options are. But the categories that you're comparing between Advantage plans and supplemental plans are going to be network. It's going to be your monthly premium. It's going to be your maximum out-of-pocket costs. It's going to be prescription drug costs. Usually those are the four main things that go into this proverbial pot, where we're able to then take a look at, what are your actual out-of-pocket costs going to run you? Because out-of-pocket costs with health insurance are not just your monthly premiums. So if I've got somebody who has some chronic conditions, maybe they go see a handful of specialists frequently, one of those two avenues may be better for that person cost-wise over the course of their life.
So your main focus is, can we provide the right coverage, and is the right coverage more valuable, or is the savings of premium more valuable? That's kind of what I'm hearing from you.
You are absolutely right, because they go hand in hand with each other. When you're on Medicare, you're either retired or you're getting ready to retire. You have to take into consideration your expendable income. What do you have, or your disposable income? What do you have access to? You don't want to be what we call insurance poor. You don't want to go out and get the best health insurance plan out there if that means that you can't put, food on the table.
Let's say that somebody says, okay, I want to talk to Taylor. I want to talk to, but you can't do all of this yourself. You can't talk to as many people as you're helping yourself. So you have a team of people that you're working with. So if somebody wanted to say, hey, I want to talk to somebody on Taylor's team, how much time would you spend with that person? What's the normal amount of time to help them decide what's the best thing to do?
Generally, about an hour and a half is all it takes. And that hour and a half, what I mentioned it before.
So 10 times what Geico takes.
10 times what Geico takes, but we're doing a much more thorough job, and we're not just offering one insurance company.
Right.
But that hour to hour and a half is taking them from start to finish, educating them on original Medicare, the true difference between the two types of health insurance plans. If this person is taking medications, we need to take a list of those prescriptions, filter them through all the different plans that are out there, show them what their prescription costs will be. By the time they're done with that meeting, not only do they understand Medicare, they understand the different types of health insurance. They can confidently choose which path they want to go down. And by the end of that meeting, they know exactly what they're going to do.
See, I think that's critical. And I think that as you tie in that health insurance aspect of somebody, look, let's face it. None of us ever buy insurance hoping that we get to file a claim. We always buy insurance hoping that we never have to file a claim. Health insurance is one of those things that's a little bit different. We expect that we're going to file claims every single year. We expect that as we age, our health is going to begin to deteriorate, and we're going to need to see more doctors. So we know that this is like a factor of, this is going to be an expensive part of somebody's later years in life, and having the right insurance can make a big difference in what do they get to keep versus what's going to go to medical expenses.
You want to limit the exposure. That's the whole goal. But at the same time, you have to understand your plan, be comfortable with it, and make sure that you can afford the plan comfortably.
So if somebody wants to talk to you, Taylor, we're going to put a link in the show notes to your website. Can they schedule directly through your website, or is this going to be a contact info? They call you? How do they do it?
Contact info. They can call or fill out the form. The form goes straight to my email address, and I call people back as soon as I get it.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for taking time to talk about the. This is a big deal. This is Look, it's the number one reason why I see people delaying retirement. And a lot of times I don't think they need to. They just don't understand what options are out there. And I think that even the people that are in retirement, they need to understand what options are in front of them, and they could use some of that money that they're spending on either health insurance, or they've got the maximum out-of-pocket expense or whatever it is, that they could be spending on other things to truly enjoy their life. So I appreciate you being on the Guided Retirement Show and sharing your insights as a professional in the insurance area.
Dean, thank you so much. I appreciate you.
Thanks so much for joining us on the Guided Retirement Show. As usual, in the show notes, there are links to Taylor Garner's website. There are links so that you can reach the certified financial planners here at Barber Financial Group. And as always, I want you to make sure that you are subscribing to our podcast and sharing it with your friends. If you're watching us on YouTube, please make sure, give us a thumbs up, subscribe, and interact with us here. We can start to answer your questions right here on YouTube. Thanks again for joining us on the Guided Retirement Show.
Starting your route to retirement.